Good evening, everyone. I'm Suchetna, third year BSMS student of ISA Mohali. Welcome to MFS 2021 webinar titled Pseudoscience and its Inclusion in Curricula, where we have Dr. Ritika Sud and Dr. R. Venkateshan talking about the various misconceptions about pseudoscientific beliefs prevalent in our society, as well as the problems of inclusion of such elements in curricula. I would like to now call Ritam to briefly inform us about the purpose and agenda of March for Science and what it stands for.
Hi everyone, I'm Ritam, a BSMS student at ISA Mohali. I'll be giving a brief background of India March for Science. The March for Science has been held worldwide since 2017 to propagate science and scientific thought and temperament. In the Indian scientific community organizes March for Science to highlight scientific problems in the Indian context, generally in early August. In the wake of this COVID-19 pandemic, standing up for science has become more important than ever. In spite of the scientific community warning the government about the possibility of a second wave of COVID, based on experiences in Europe and America, events of mass gatherings like elections and Kumbh were organized. The pandemic has severely affected education and scientific research as well. PhD students have lost 1.5 years of research time, but the funding agencies have still not extended the tenure of fellowships. Besides, the funding support to all institutions has been slashed as an outlay on education has been reduced by about 6% in the 2021-22 budget, while granting tax exemption to the corporate sector. More than that, unscientific materials are being introduced in the education system as Indian knowledge systems, a mainstay of the new education policy, NEP, which was tabled in the parliament during the pandemic. The IGNOU has introduced a MA course in astrology, and many other universities are introducing courses in astrology, Vastu Shastra, and other areas of pseudoscience. Blended learning is being proposed as an alternative to in-class learning, even for regular times. This would enable private capital to monopolize the education market, making quality education costly and inaccessible to a larger population. In the wake of these problems, we make the following demands to the center and the state governments. Number one, take adequate steps based on scientific advice supported by data to counter the COVID pandemic. Number two, stop propagating unscientific deceptive ideas and develop scientific temper, human values, and spirit of inquiry as per Article 51A of the Constitution. Number three, ensure that education system does not impart ideas that are not based on or contradict scientific evidence. Number four, allocate at least 10% of the central budget and 30% of the state budget to education. 5. Ensure that at least 3% of the country's GDP supports scientific and technological research. Increase the financial support to scientific institutions and increase the fellowship tenure of PhD students by 1.5 years. We place these demands before the central and the state government. Now, Suchetna will introduce our second speaker for today. So Chetana, you're muted.
Our second speaker for the evening is Dr. R. Venkateshan. He's the head of the Radiological and Environmental Safety Division in the Indira Gandhi Center for Atomic Research, IGCAR, Department of Atomic Energy. His areas of expertise include atmospheric physics, climate variability, and atmospheric and air pollution modeling. So we thank you for joining us today.
I'll be introducing our first speaker for the day, Dr. Ritika Sud. She's the coordinator of the core lab facility at ADBS Nimhans. Her research interests include investigating mechanisms common across neurodegenerative diseases and exploring associations between neurodevelopmental and neurodegenerative disorders. She is also working with India Bioscience and the Collaborative Undergraduate Biology Education, CUBE, initiative aimed at revamping science education in India. We thank our speakers for accepting our invitation to speak in the webinar titled Pseudoscience and its Inclusion in the Curricula on the occasion of Indian March for Science 2021. Dr. Sood will be speaking about various misconceptions and pseudoscientific beliefs prevalent in our society in general, and Dr. Venkateshan will be discussing the problems of inclusion of such elements in our curricula. Before we request our speakers to present their lectures, I'll lay down some ground rules. Do not unmute and interrupt the speaker please raise your hand. Please use the raise hand feature in Zoom so that we can take questions. We'll be taking questions at the end of the talk or if the speaker feels necessary. So raise hand and your name will be called out. And you can also type in your questions in the Facebook Live, and a moderator will be picking up the questions from there and conveying it to the speakers. Now I'll request Dr. Sood to take on from here.
Thank you so much. And thank you again for inviting me today. I will start my share screen here. You can see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you in my time today, use it to talk about just in my association with the Indian Scientist Response to COVID-19 group, how we went about busting hoaxes that became so prevalent during the pandemic. Also take you sort of with me to a sort of impromptu journey that I have begun, and was totally not planned. But then in the process of going through busting of hoaxes, and the question kept coming up of why do people fall for it? And the question comes from different quarters and different forms from different audience. So it's sort of going through the process, that process of collecting evidence and addressing hoaxes over and over again. This question also took on a personal meaning for me, and I would like to share with you some of the things that I have come across, and as I'm formulating a response to that. I will say a disclaimer up front is that this is not me telling you what it is. It's more like what I am discovering, and I am inviting you to join me, and I would look forward to hearing your responses at the end. So yeah, as I said, I have been active with the ISRC group. So here at the beginning, so we're talking at the beginning of last year, when the fear for the pandemic was far greater than the number of cases we had at the time. And so at the time, a lot of the hoaxes were treatments and preventative strategies and so on. So our process there was like collecting people in the group, and also we had a dedicated email where anybody could inform us or tell us something that they're hearing, a preventative or a treatment thing, and we would look at the evidence for it. So we would collect hoaxes and collate the evidence. So as scientists, this is one thing that across discipline we do get training in from our PhD onwards, is how to look at the claim and judge the evidence for it. So here we consciously tried to steer clear from news stories, because the information is fluid and the evidence changes from day to day. We wanted to stay as close to the source as possible, and judge the publication, whether preprint or published, but judge the evidence as the scientists have presented. And then along with the evidence, what the science says also matters in the language that we say. That a lot of the information that is in journals stays far away from people, everyday people. If it's not behind a paid firewall, it's also hiding behind jargon, which only certain people, only people of that subfield would be able to follow, in foreign language to most of us. So we wanted to make sure that the evidence is accessible and available to anybody who wants it. And lastly, we wanted to make sure that we put the information out in a format that is easily shareable. A lot of the misinformation spreads through WhatsApp. So it was important for us that the actual information, the right information, also follows the same route. So I'll just show you some examples of, this is not changing, 1 second. Here we go. Okay, so this is a couple examples here of how information is there on the ISRC website. So if you have not seen, I invite you to look up ISRC and check out the information there. So this is some examples. So for example, depending on what the claim was, we evaluated the evidence and gave a verdict in terms of how it fared in terms of available evidence. So the verdict was spelled out as not true or misleading or incorrect, most likely for insufficient evidence, and so on. And so this is how the WhatsApp shareable format looked, in that it had the claim, the verdict, and a brief information of why the verdict is what it is. And so for every hoax we addressed, there was a response. Like I said, we want to have in clear enough language. And so it had why we said what the evidence says and where the claim stands in response, and then more detailed information on what the evidence is, because we wanted to not just give an answer of a yes or no, but also for everyone to see what the evidence is and why is something not true, or whatever the specific verdict that we said it was. And so it was fluid. Depending on if the information changed, we updated it according to reflect the current evidence. That said, so we did what we did because, well, misinformation is very readily available. You know, you don't even have to go looking for it. It's just there in our social media feeds. It comes in our phones. So the right information should also be just as readily available. That was the reason of doing what we did. But this is where my personal journey begins, is that, and this is something a lot of people in science communication agree, is that facts alone don't matter. In that, if you just say that this claim is false and this is the right information, that alone does not make that misinformation go away. We have to realize that it's not a kind of like a musical chair game between information, correct information and misinformation just got there first. So if you just replace that and put the right information in its place, then all will be well. We do not live in such a world. So we have to understand that while it's important to get the right information out there and share with it as much as possible, but then we have to know why pseudoscience, misinformation, fake news, why is it so popular? Why is it so powerful? So to that end, I wanted to share with you some research. People have been doing research into it, and I want to share with you some of that. This is Tali Sherratt. She's a psychologist, cognitive scientist out of University College London. And this is one of her research on how people update their beliefs. So think of it like, you know, when you hear a claim and somebody shares something with you that is misinformation, what happens when you correct them? If you just tell them, well, this is not right and this is, how do they respond? So this is essentially what this study from her lab was about. How do people respond to new information? And here they recruit people and ask them about what they think of climate change, human-caused climate change specifically. Do they think that human beings have contributed to it? Or do they think that it's just that human beings, or they think that human beings have not? So you have two groups: yes, no. Yes, I think human beings have contributed to the global warming, or no, I don't. And then based on that, they were asked to give an estimate. How much do you think over the next 10 years or so is the temperature of the planet going to change? And after that, everybody was sort of randomized again. They formed two new groups. So now each of the two new groups had people who were believers in climate change and who were not. Now to one group, researchers went and said, well, scientists have looked at the evidence and the situation is actually much worse than what was originally thought. So remember, in this group, you have people who don't believe that humans have anything to do with climate change. So how do these people react when they're told that situation is actually much worse? The temperature is going to go up by a lot more than scientists originally thought. And to the second group, they gave the opposite information. They said scientists have really looked at the numbers and it's actually not that bad. The temperature is not going to go up by as much as they originally thought. So how do people react in each group? So here we have in this figure, the right side is the people who strongly believe in human contribution to climate change. So in this group, when people are told that things are much worse than what was originally thought, and would they like to revise their estimate? So their estimate of their opinion of how much do you think the temperature of the earth is going to go up became more extreme. They changed their answer to a higher number. And the people who didn't think that climate change have anything to do with human activity, they didn't budge at all. They didn't change their opinion. They did not revise their opinion at all. And on this left-hand side, you have people who don't think, whose opinion originally is that humans have nothing to do with climate change. To those people, when you gave the news that it's actually not that bad, then they change their opinion, they revise their estimate. But to people who think that climate change is actually because of human beings, their view didn't change at all. So what that tells us is that if you imagine a continuum of the right side is climate change is caused by humans and left side is it's not, then when you give people information that agrees with the opinion they already hold, they go more towards the extreme where they were. Whereas, and if you told people who don't believe in human contribution to climate change that it's actually, you're correct, then they became more towards the other extreme. So giving people information that agrees with their view. So first, people notice information only when it agrees with what they already think, independent of whether what they think is right or not. And they ignore, when you give them information that is opposite to what they think, it's ignored. And so just that tells us, for everyone who's vested in getting the right information out there, is just giving people information doesn't change anything. People notice only what information that agrees with what they already think. So that's lesson number one that we should all be paying attention to. And so in their next study, they looked at what happens in the brain. What happens in the brain of people when you give them information that is opposite to what they already think. So, and remember this, so far we're only talking about opinion. We're not talking about whether the opinion is factually correct or not. It's just you have an opinion and you're given information that either agrees with it or doesn't. So in this study, what they did was they showed pictures of properties to people and gave them a number and saying this property is on the market for this much dollars, and do you think that this number is above or below the market value of this property? So again, asking people for their opinion. And so based on their opinion, a follow-up question was, how sure are you? So for that, they asked him, how much are you willing to wager between a certain range? So the higher the number, higher the wager, the more confident you are in your opinion. So this is one step. So then a week later, they called the same people back in pairs, and this time they're in the scanner. So they, across the glass partition, they can see a second person is also in the scanner. And this time they're showed the same images, they're reminded what their answers were. And so now they're given a new piece of information. They're told that person across the glass partition thinks this, so whatever you bid, whatever you think this property of 100,000 is above or below its market value, you're either told they agree with you or you're told they disagree with you. And when this information is given, the researchers are monitoring what happens in the brain. So where the activity, so if you see an activity here, it means the brain is coding the incoming information. So similar to what they found earlier in the climate change study, they found that when people are told that somebody else agrees with them, the brain codes that information, whereas not so much when they're told that somebody disagrees with them. So this is experimental evidence that brain ignores information that doesn't agree with the preconceived notion. So when we're talking about, fighting misinformation that is so rampant, we have to understand that it carries with it certain gravitational value, and just throwing facts at it is not going to make it go away. So we have to understand why people go for what they go for. So this is experimental evidence for confirmation bias. And so we have to be aware of that. We have to be aware that we believe what we want to believe. And it has really, no causal relationship, so to speak, for whether the information is factually correct or not. So the takeaway, I think, here is that misinformation thrives at the fault lines of our fears, anxieties, and biases. Why misinformation is so powerful is that it uses these, it has a lot of emotional value to it. Something that will make you feel either really good or really bad, and that has a pull that facts alone, numbers alone just do not have. So we have to understand when somebody falls for a belief something is true, that what might be the reason. And when that somebody is us, if you see a message come across your news feed and you want to believe it, I think we should, it starts with all of us individually. That is, that we should ask ourselves, why do I believe it? Have the person telling me, have they convinced me? Have they given evidence? And if I am not even looking for evidence, or I believe in something without the evidence being there, then that is called for me to look within myself to say, why do I believe it? And I want to share a personal example with you here in that, the day that Neeraj Chopra won the gold, there was on Twitter an account that claimed to be from a Pakistani player who congratulated Neeraj to say, congratulations to my icon, and sorry, Pakistan, I couldn't get the gold for you. And considering the history of the two countries, this was such a heartwarming news. You know, it was an athlete from Pakistan is congratulating an athlete from India. And a day later, we find out that it's actually not, it's a fake account. It's an account claiming to be from the player and wasn't. And I almost fell for it myself, because it was such a strong emotional reaction that you believe, that you want to believe that this must be true, and oh, such a heartwarming story, whereas it was anything from. Now, this was not harmful. This was not somebody saying, drink this and you will not get COVID. But then it tells you something very personal. Like misinformation a lot of times is powerful because it has a strong emotional appeal to it. So this is something that I think that we should keep in mind going forward. So this is why I say that, I mean, out there is a lot of information, some of it correct, some of it not. In all this clamor, if all we've got with us is facts, then we're not gonna make a dent in the situation. And we have to understand that facts alone are not gonna matter, and that at some level, or rather different levels, there need to be conversations about why misinformation is so powerful. So far we've talked about misinformation. For the next couple of minutes, I want to talk about disinformation. So this is where people intentionally give you incorrect information. So this is in context of COVID. We're talking, you know, blaming a certain community or members of a particular religion for they are responsible for COVID. None of us would be in this mess if it wasn't for them. So that's intentionally giving incorrect information. So this online game, this anyone can play, called getbadnews.com. This actually walks people through the process of how people essentially make stuff up, and why do they get so many followers, and how that works. So here we have, this is a work out of van der Linden's lab out of Cambridge. And so this game has all these components. You impersonate. You have to create an online profile of yourself, impersonating somebody who has essentially somebody important. And then your messages have to have a lot of emotional. Remember, misinformation is powerful because it carries a lot of emotional baggage with it. So you have to, your tweets, your messages, whatever online you post, it should have a lot of emotional content. Just bland facts are not going to cut it. And then the more polarizing your information is, the more followers you gain. And an element of conspiracy that, you know, so it's being done at a high level. Some people know, and a lot of us don't. It's intentionally being kept from us. So again, in context of COVID, it jibes with a lot of, you know, vaccines and big pharma being in it, and it has some chip and all these kind of stuff. So you get a personal sense of, you know, the more, and it prompts you. So if you're and it's a very visceral experience. So in the game, the prompts you get are to make your content more polarizing, the more emotional. So you see that on YouTube also, right? If you the videos that get more views are the ones that have headings like person XYZ destroys ABC, like that has this emotional, and it makes you want to click on it. So you get a sense of doing this while playing this game of how people do it. And, you know, you also gain more followers or get more pull by discrediting someone who is saying the right thing. And then finally you troll them. So if somebody is out there correcting the misinformation that you spew out, you troll them online. So by doing this always, it makes it a lot of, one, you get a sense of how people who are intentionally spreading disinformation, how they do it, how they sort of the inner workings of it. And the creators of the game, and I agree that they hope that by doing this, it's sort of, it's not just, well, it's just out there and so many people believe in it, it must be true. You get an inside sense of how it might be happening. So I have played it myself, and it was a very disturbing experience, intentionally to be creating disinformation. But just to get a sense of the inner workings, I would recommend you at least give it a shot. So this is another article that just came out today. Linden is one of the authors, along with 4 others. 5 rules for evidence communication. So we've seen how facts alone are not going to make a difference. If you just tell people this is the right information, that is insufficient. So how should we convey the right information? So here I'll talk about just some of these points. One that they say is inform, not persuade. So it's not to lecture at someone, to not just to say, well, I'm here to change your mind and whatever it takes. Your goal is to inform. And human beings are inherently curious. We see it in kids all the time. And for those of us who are fortunate to be scientists, we get to be curious on a professional basis. So we don't have to work too hard at addressing what's wrong. All we have to do is spark that curiosity in the minds of our audience, and then where the evidence is, so like they also talk about disclose uncertainties, what we know, what we don't know, what are we doing to address the unknown, and in the meantime, what can people do to be safe? Essentially, like in the context of COVID, that's really where it stands. People want to be safe. They want to feel. There's a lot of anxiety still about it's not ending, and second wave is not ended, and there might be a third. So there is a lot of anxiety, and misinformation thrives on that. So long as we can address that while keeping true to the science, we're on solid ground. And so pre-bunking is another thing. Get an inside look of how does misinformation spread. And the game at getbatnews.com, it gives a good sense of to inform people of when misinformation goes viral, what are the elements behind it, how does it happen. That also people are less likely to be susceptible to get swept up in it if they know, if they're aware of what goes sort of behind the screen. And this, I'll close with this. This is a paper I just started reading. So this is out of conversations in a lot of quarters about, whenever we talk about misinformation going viral, and one thing that has happened in the context of COVID is numerologists and astrologists and so on. It's been good business for them. And so it is for people who care about the science and people who care about scientific information being out there, scientific temper of the population at large. It can be disheartening. And I've been in conversations where it feels like, well, if this kind of information is spreading in India so easily, it may be because scientific temper is not that high. But then this paper looks at a not so obvious, at least not to me, not so obvious part of the conversation, which is that people in general are more trusting. And this is independent of the nationality and education level and so on and so on. In general, and this is why when you confront people about, well, I got this message and I'm forwarding it, it's because in general there is this sense of trust. Well, why would someone lie? So there is this openness, this wanting to believe in something that's just there. And this paper, this is a study about this trust. So when you just ask people to trust the science, just blindly trust it because it is scientific, it must be true, you must trust it, that right there opens people up to trusting misinformation also. So that if you have something that use scientific words or claims to be opinion of a scientist or a body of scientists and so on, it can make people believe something that is not actually true. So here, and this, the subjects, the volunteers in this study were pretty well balanced for age group, for political ideology, for belief in religion, and so on. So it was a pretty balanced group. So this is not something we can say, well, all the conservatives believe this, or they're not educated, they believe this. It's pretty open. So that's the other thing too that I have been realizing, is that no one is immune. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're just starting out, you're in college, or you retired, or you're what the economic background and so on. Because misinformation thrives on our biases, and because we all have them, it's not possible for human beings to not have biases. And so there is always going to be this tendency to wanting to believe something that's not true. So here they've looked at, if we just ask people to trust science, it opens people up to trust misinformation, pseudoscience as well. Instead, the conversation needs to be about the methods. Why is something trustworthy, or why is this evidence reliable? So we need to talk more. The conversations need to be about the methods and the kind of evidence that should be reliable versus science or pseudoscience, or believe or not believe. So I will close with that, and I will be happy to take questions and see your views to my presentation here. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a very interesting talk. So we'll open the floor for questions briefly, like for about 10 to 15 minutes before we begin with the next speaker. So if anyone wants to ask something, you can unmute yourself and or just write in the chat. Yes, Shubhadeepta.
Hi, I'm Shubhadeep, I'm doing postdoc at University of Zagreb. It's a beautiful talk, and I have just one. I have thought. I mean, your talk invoked a question in me. I would like to ask that. So what you said, that we definitely have a personal bias regarding something, some fact or some event, and on the other hand, there might be some person whom we trust, or a group of person maybe we trust. From them the information is coming, like a particular person sharing in WhatsApp group. So say is there any experiment or study like that where I have a wrong bias and I start to accept information? I mean, my brain starts to code information more on that wrong side. But there is another person whom I trust, and some information coming from him which contradicts my thought. Can that nullify, or say at least take one step forward, believing in the correct fact? And second question will be, so say we see that the misinformation, as you have mentioned, or the disinformation thrives on the from the WhatsApp forwards and things like that. So it certainly comes from a particular person or a particular group. So will it be, shall I assume that not only it feeds on the personal bias of the person who is forwarding it after second time or third time, but also it's coming from a person who actually, the person who is forwarding that text is actually believing the person in origin, or group in origin? I mean, it's the second question. Follow.
Okay, so as far as the second question, there is multiple reasons why somebody might forward something. Their personal belief, they think something is true, is one of them. In my sort of informal research, if you will, like when I get messages, I am curious, do you think this is true? Do you believe this? So when I have done that, I find it's a mix. They think, well, I don't necessarily know, but it might help someone. So this thing of, I'm not, who can it hurt? This thing of what harm does it do? That kind of a thing. And this goes with the research that also tells us that people are inherently trusting. This thing of, why would someone lie? Why would someone make it up? So we are inherently trusting. So it goes with that of, I didn't really give it enough thought to say, well, do I believe it or do I not? But then it might help someone, so I passed it along. So it's a mix of, it's not always fueled by personal belief. As far as your first question, so I am not aware of any study where they have done this sort of, does this counter that? But then, like I said, there are many factors that go into when somebody forwards something, a message. and emotional aspect is definitely a big one, but then there is other emotion is not, it's not a single monolithic entity. There is multiple emotions, and different emotions run the show at, if you will, at different points in our life. So then when you get competing information, so say there is a situation where you're getting competing information from two different sources. On trust level, they're comparable. You trust both of these people, but they're telling you opposite things. So in one sense, it will connect a sort of a torn scenario in your brain. And one thing to know about human brains is that our brains don't like that. I mean, we do not like uncertainty, which is very, very funny to me, because life is anything but that. So, but we don't deal very well. So what your brain will try to resolve that uncertainty as quickly as possible. And that might mean, well, today I like this friend, so I will go with this person. Tomorrow I like that person, so maybe that view. I don't really know. So it'll be a process. But then the thing to do there, I think, that is to remain open. If I trust this person, and well, what they're saying, what kind of emotions is it invoking in me? Do I like it or don't I like it? Why don't I like it? It's gonna prolong the uncomfortable feeling, but then right there is you're gonna find your own answer, rather than going with, well, that person said this, so I go with that. So hopefully I answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Right, so we have two more questions, and we'll take those and then move on to the next speaker, because it's supposed to be a short break. So first we'll take Swastik's question. Swastik.
Good evening, ma'am. My name is Swastik. I really enjoyed your talk.
Thanks.
So, ma'am, my question is that, ma'am, usually common people, or like the average or lay person, is not expected to be like knowledgeable about scientific methods and like about scientific experiments and all that. So they are usually told to trust scientists, because like as opposed to trusting like random people and all that, because like they cannot like know about the science of things by themselves, so they are just told that scientists are a good source and trustworthy source and all that. But as you said in your talk, like this might lead to spreading of pseudoscience if it uses like scientific words and scientific terms and claims that like such and such person is a scientist and all that. So like what would you say is the solution to that? Because obviously we can't expect all the people to have like adequate scientific knowledge regarding anything.
Oh, well, I think that the emphasis has to shift from this is the right answer or this is what the science is, to why we think it. So when any information from anyone which comes to, well, scientists today think this, well, what is the evidence based on which they say it? And this has to apply everywhere. So we should for science journalism, for example, it's become very, I don't even know what the right, disappointing, let's just say, because they if you look at just this news, popular news, they don't talk about method at all. Why are scientists saying whatever it is that they're saying? So as an audience, at the very least, we should pressure them to discuss more the quality of evidence and not just go on, this is what it is today. And so if we and it's not going to obviously be overnight, but then over time, I think that whether it is in our daily conversations, whether it is in the news, or it's actually talking about something that impacts everyone's lives, the emphasis has to be, how do we know this, rather than what we know.
Okay, ma'am, thank you.
Okay, so I guess Dr. Venkateshan must have a question.
So I do have a question. Not really a question in that sense, an opinion regarding how this political campaigners engineer the politics in favor of some party, like Prashant Kishore, you are all aware of the IPAC company. He's running a company. It was not a practice a decade ago, or some time ago, but nowadays every political party is hiring such people. So that means that they engineer the political thought process of the commoners and they try to tilt them in favor of them. So what is your opinion about it? Why the people are becoming so susceptible to such things? Should I feel that sooner the people are getting exposed to this type of engineering things and they become more cautious, or they are becoming more and more susceptible to this type of engineering?
Absolutely. So I think the part of it is that we don't know how, because we don't know the below the surface what's happening. We just see the information that comes out and we tend to not question it. So this is why the game is very powerful. I would just show them that game and ask them to play it, because then you get a real sense of this is how people are intentionally playing with it. And we do have research now to show that once people are aware how they might be manipulated, they're more open to the possibility that something might be a manipulation, and they don't fall for something that easily.
Okay, thank you.
We'll take the last question for now from Abhimanyu.
I really enjoyed your talk. So from your talk, like and like common daily experiences, I felt that I feel that misinformation is much more prevalent than the correct information that's given to people, primarily through social media and WhatsApp forwards. Like say your attempt at not like at discouraging the COVID myths. Those attempts is really less than the amount of misinformation provided to the people, and it seems like somewhat a mammoth task to remove disinformation from people. So how do we tackle that right now? Because it's a pretty huge thing. It's pretty widespread.
Yeah, absolutely. And we, within ISRC also, we've had, when a fresh wave of new cures and garlics and gingers and so on would come, we would need, this would be somebody or the other would say, how long can we go on? And this, because it feels like a losing battle. But then, well, one, we have to, we can't throw in the towel. So, and so my view is that we have to keep talking about the why. We have to, well, how do we know this? It's not just, well, take this and how can it hurt? Slight, even if it's imperceptible, shift in the conversation has to happen, because sometimes it becomes, well, who can it hurt? No, it can hurt. And we've seen examples of that. People take boatloads of dietary supplements, and we don't think of food as chemical also. So I think that the article in Nature magazine that I preach, when they say inform, not preach. So just think of, all we have to do is create this, we don't have to talk at people, but we do have to create this, just this sort of shift in perspective of, there is no harm, there might be, there is a case like this. So, and keep creating questions, making it about evidence and not so much about this is the thing today. I think that we have to do that. We have to keep doing that.
Yes, sure. Thanks a lot.
All right, so now we'll move on to Dr. Venkateshan. So you can take over now.
So can I start? Well, thank you, Dr. Sood, and I also enjoyed. I feel that I can drop out and you can continue. And some of the points around which I wanted to dwell upon has already been discussed here. As far as this astrology is concerned, I'm talking to a well-informed audience here. There's not much is to be said on what is astronomy, astrology, all those things. And but still, we need to worry about why then this astrology is introduced. Even if you don't introduce, it is already spread, widespread in the society. So there are believers and they go to astrologers for many problems. And the educators at the helm of affairs also want to introduce this as a legitimate course. That is what is supposed to be looked at and a worrying factor. And of course, its impact in the society is also very serious, in the sense I was talking to one of my colleagues today about this point. Then he was telling that what impact is not going to be any serious impact. It has been there and it will be there maybe for some more time. But just we lived with it, and the scientists have developed, and science has improved. So why do you bother about it? So this type of answer was coming. So that means the impact is also not felt. From the word the impact, we know that there is a kind of a shock that has to be felt. Then we say that there is an impact of the shock. But if it is a slow medicine, if it is a slow hit in a low frequency, or you can say that a high frequency continuous wave, where we don't even feel the shock. So we do not know, we do not sense the impact of it. That's what I felt. So people are feeling that what impact? So that means the impact has in such a way that it is not felt. So when the IGNO announced the course that they will be shortly teaching a course on astrology, there was not much reaction to it, except a few people who always react when such announcement comes. And when I just saw, is it the first time they're introducing? But I found that around 70 courses are there, run by about 34 institutions and colleges and even premium institutes in our country. So, so then this is something which is going on for long, and this has been there for centuries. So how to tackle this? So that is very important. So and one more point, when I discussed with my colleague about this topic was, then he said that, you see, we know what is astronomy, what is astrology, and they have taken the medieval astronomy and taking that part of the science and mixing it with their predictions on the human life. The astrology has come. So now you may say that that is not astronomy. You can say astrology is not an astronomy. Very good. But then, and so astrology is not a science. But so you can say that astrology minus the predictive part is astronomy, and only that part is science. So that is how he was telling that is how I used to explain to my children. So, but that astronomy has taken leaps and bounds the growth in the recent times, and now the astronomy of 16th century is no more adequate to explain the motions of the planets and the galaxies and so on. Then the same man was telling me that now if we minus astronomy from astrology, do you think that part is a science or not science? So I was surprised. Then I said, how it can be a science? Then he said, no, it has some kind of elements of sciences in that. Like, for example, the way how they personalize and touch on the emotional faculty and the personal aspects of a man who has several problems in his life, where they try to stabilize him and try to give some kind of a counseling. And so does it not uh, mean that there is some kind of a science in it, a psychological analysis in it? And so the man gets confidence. Then I was thinking, so there is a saying, no, there when our astrophysicist Jayant Narlekar, when he commented that how can we legitimize astrology, that will take us way back to medieval times. Then there was another director, I think he's B.R. Saini, director of Institute of Astrology. He was commenting in a very polite manner for the average man struggling with so many problems in his life, problems like the medical, financial, and emotional. Some kind of guidance is required, and the astrologers are giving it. So why not allow astrology, so long as it is not going to interfere in your astrophysics or astronomy? So that was a point raised by him. And he was telling that in the rural areas, there are so many people, astrologers, and they are doing this type of jobs. So then I told to my friend, you see, the psychological counseling also is being done by the scientists. The psychologists and the psychiatrists, they are dealing with such problems. If you have an emotional issue, quite possible that you can get it rectified if you are going to a proper counseling person. But then when it comes to financial problems and certain other problems which are social in nature, you cannot give a personalized solution to that. So, so that part of astrology, where you minus astronomy, is also not a science. It might be counseling him, but it may be confusing him, put him in a wrong direction. Many times they may invest in a place where actually they may not be able to recover anything. But believing astrologers, they do it and finally they commit suicide. So they cannot take this for granted. So even that part is not a science. So the problem is uh, the belief part of astrology, as Madam has already explained. Even the scientists, they are having a confusion that the science deals with the nature and maybe to some extent to a society. But when it comes to persons and personal thinking and his ideas, he feels that the science is far inadequate to deal with those things. So he tends to believe and give more weightage to an astrologer than to a scientist, to a psychologist, to a social psychologist or a psychological counselor. So an astrologer becomes very big man because he has this type of thinking. Somewhere that education related to how the emotional management can be done. What happens now? Just now, Madam was showing, when you pick up the questions, the facts, what part of your brain is getting activated, where it is getting coded, and so those type of information, knowledge about that, probably is required to to enlighten even the educated scientists that the way how you collect the information, process it, and develop ideas is also following a scientific process. And you need not be so scared about it, and you need not run here and there and look for a counselor who soothes you and brings your emotion. Maybe you may become stabilized, but still you'll be put on a wrong footing. So this part of science has to be widespread. I think these are very recently developed, but this part of the science, that is how the man's thinking works. So that has to be spread. And looking at this astrology introduction in our country, not only in our country, I was trying to see whether in different parts of the world, whether this type of courses are run by universities. In many places, they are all run by some astrological associations, so which are not affiliated to any university. But very recently, some of the universities, even in USA, they have jointly with that university, the astrological associations are running courses and offering degrees. So for example, I think it's surprising in Washington, higher education, uh, higher education coordination board. That board, just like our CBSE board, it has formulated a course in a Kepler's College. Surprisingly, the name is Kepler. The Kepler's College running this astrology degree course. Similarly, London School of Astrology, which is with the University of Wales, they are also running a course, and the course title is Cultural Astronomy and Astrology. So this type of universities are now giving degrees in this type of astrology, and in everywhere this problem has been coming up serious in the recent time. After 2017, with a very it has found that the number of people who knock the doors of the astrologers, they have increased manifold, and there is a business which is thriving behind them also. There are a lot of investors, so they have started online counseling portals. And there's one CoStar. I think it's a CoStar is a big billionaire minting money out of this. So there is a spread of many things that so and so, even the big stars, they are successful because of this type of thing. Writing such informations using the digital network and advancements, so much of misinformation are spread, and then trapping the people in that and hooking them permanently with their sites and their business network. And I think the business is up so much. About $3.2 billion business. They have been about 4 billion a year. There is a business. So then naturally you can understand that it is not just only a belief and something which is naturally there for long, many centuries. No, in the recent time, in a more advanced world, the modern times, this has been spread and kept alive, which otherwise should have vanished gradually. At least the educated people should not be falling prey to that. But even today, the audience here will very well agree that your parents will still stick to your horoscopes matching when it comes to your personalized issues like your marriage or whatever, that you want to go out to abroad, they will consult somebody. So these type of things are there, which you cannot avoid. If you don't believe in it, but you will have to give respect to your parents. So an emotional pressure will be there, and through that, these type of things continue. And the uncertainties in life, so that also sometimes traps us into believing this, like say, health issues, financial, so many such problems may lead us to this type of things. Now, what to do? So this is the situation. So one thing is simply saying that astrology is not a science doesn't work. Like Madam said, simply preaching or even giving the information also doesn't work. So we can't stop by just giving information about astrology. Neither we can simply preach also. Then what to do? I felt that I think you will have to take a very strong step. We need not be so mild. A time comes where sometimes you will have to make a very strong, a revolutionary step. Like Newton, for example, when he stood up and told the church at that time that all the things move in the world not because of your power, but because of the law of motions, gravity. The Darwin explained to the world that things were not created, they have evolved. For all these things, they had to face problems. They have to face the wrath of the rulers. That Galileo, when he said it is a heliocentric world, then he had to be imprisoned. He faced it. So a juncture comes in the society where we can't just simply inform, neither we can preach, but we will have to be ready to sacrifice and give a strong blow and tell that this cannot go on like this. So a very strong movement is required. And so that way, those who accept or those who are convinced, no, this astrology is not a science, let us not bother about it. That's not enough. They cannot keep quiet. They will have to come out and create a social impact. A very strong social impact has to be created by a learned community. Only then, it is not just astrology, the associated, the pseudoscience, and the process of believing the pseudoscience, just like what the madam has explained, the process of believing it. Why do you accept it? Why don't you try to inquire critically the process, how these informations are processed, instead of taking straight away the informations? Why don't you say at least that I don't know about it? Let me know more about it before forming the opinion. When you are asked whether the climate change is by human or not, instead of voting, you should have told, no, I really don't know. Many things I need to know. Even scientists are divided. Then how can I take a stand? So that type of a culture has to be brought into the society. So that means through this movement, where we need to create a social impact, very strong impact, we will also have to elevate the thought process of the humans, I mean society, where they will be able to distinguish. So it is not just enough only to give information, neither we can preach, but we need to be very active and create this type of a social impact through a very strong movement. I think this much I want to say now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Venkatesan. That was amazing. So, if we have any questions, please raise your hand. Okay, Manav, thumbs up.
Can I say?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So thank you, our first speaker, Dr. Ritika Sood, and also Dr. Venkatesan. I think obviously all these things, what we have learned so far or we have discussed, is essentially that this misinformation is there. Someone's perception, prior perception will bias our, let's say us, kind of towards believing something and so on and so forth. But these are essentially a very characteristics of a particular kind of mind we develop in the society, right? So what I wanted to say, I was expecting a little bit more on discussion that how education can play its role in developing that. So for example, let's say, obviously, when we do research, or let's say in our students who are there in the audience, let's say I teach something or I say something. Obviously, in our culture, it is there. It's a Guruvadi kind of culture that whatever Guru says, the disciple will believe, and so on and so forth. But the situation should be in a sense like that the education system will encourage the student to ask the question to the teacher. Not only that, even to doubt the scientist. So this very root point, I think, should be addressed. No, otherwise, just by saying, well, just by giving information is not enough. Just by giving fact is not enough. My point is, it's very important point. Let me just reiterate once again. So for 1,500 years, starting from Ptolemy to Copernicus, people used to believe only. But the moment science kind of came into picture through experimentation and so on and so forth, it actually striked on this very notion of believing, rather asking people to start question. So this very thing had to be also developed, that means this mindset, through a different education system. If you look at very carefully, the very Royal Society in England was essentially an institution that was taking challenge of these old universities that was following this Jesuit culture or Jesuit science, so-called pseudoscience. So what do you think about this introduction of astrology in this academia and what it may bring in this context? That is my question. So maybe Dr. Venkatesan, you can start with that, then maybe.
No, you have well posed the question. That's why the way how even today the mutts and church and they are having more power. They are looked at with power. People go to them rather than approaching the scientists. Like I was saying, the person said, even the psychological counseling is something a service astrologer is doing. And I said, no. How do you say that? That's even for psychological counseling, you should go to the scientist. Why do you go to him? So the way how the people still believe that is the place where they look at them as a guru, what you said, or something, authorities more powerful than the scientists. So that has not changed today, even till today. And that has not changed for two reasons. One is not because of its own maintenance of its power by virtue of its philosophical or its authoritative authority by its own means, but has been maintained by some powers. Though, for example, the astrology is a $4 billion business, means there are business houses which are maintaining this. So people rush to them. There are a lot of people, even Roosevelt, he used to keep his horoscope in his dining room all the time. And so that way, the U-boat of the Germany was destroyed by circulating a fake astrological magazine to change the mind of Hitler, because Hitler had a lot of faith on this, and he thought that under this condition, under these circumstances, at this time, if I run this U-boat, I will be successful. So to choose that time, a wrong astrological magazine was printed and circulated, and that is how that one U-boat was destroyed. So these are all histories. So what I'm saying is that these authorities and these powerful mutts and churches are even today maintaining their power. A scientist is not very powerful. Some ordinary astrologer is very powerful. So we will have to change this mind. That cannot change simply. That's what the point is. It has to be changed by an institutional effort. That is that we will have to be an institution by ourselves and take up the role of strongly changing the mind by a social movement. So the movement is very much required. So even though there was a minuscule small number of people who opposed this IGNOU's introduction of astrology, the rest of the population is silent. That's not correct, actually. So that is the message I think we should take them. You may disagree, you may agree that astrology is not a science and all, but that is not enough. You will have to see that the society in which we live also disagrees, not only disagrees, throws all pseudoscientific things and tries to develop this scientific inquiry mind, which has not been there in our education system itself today. And some of the students who applied for this course, I know in Madras University also there was a course, and the students were saying that I will get a job, and they got some job. But I said, what type of job it is? And after 2 years, then they told me, no, sir, nowadays the people don't go to a degree holder of astrology. If anything obtained as a degree, they do not respect. So you are only taught and you are not having the power of an astrologer. A person who is sitting under a tree or a banyan tree, he is more powerful, he earns millions, but a degree holder doesn't. So because the people believe that it is some kind of intuitionary power of an individual who is able to psychologically address your particular issues. You cannot get a degree for this. So I said that for at least for this reason, the course will fail, because people will think that these degree holders will not cannot become an astrologer. Whatever it is, so the question that what has happened for centuries, that mindset can be broken only through a strong social movement. And we will all have to become a soldier in that movement. There is no other way.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question. Anushka Chakraborty, please.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. Your speech was indeed very meaningful, as I personally feel that I have been being victimized with this issue with my family members. I have also been forced to wear a stone, and my parents said that, okay, India is preaching with this science named astrology through several years. So I went through the works of various ancient astrologers like Varaha Mihira and Khana namingly, and I found out that they were great psychoanalysts instead of astrologers. We can say that they seemed, at least to me, they seemed to have great psychoanalysis power. But still, my career issues and health issues are being victimized due to some pseudoscience practitioners. How can I at least prevent that or counsel my family members against this?
Yeah, that is true. One thing, what you said here, the same thing in a non-formal way you have to share with your parents. That is the Varaha Mihira and such people. They were also scientists, And psychological counselors, you said, but to whom they counsel, that is important. Whatever it is, they were not, see, at least Varahamihira's contribution to some extent finds in the annals of the development of astronomy in India. But their name or his name may not be found in the annals of psychology. So they are not really that way. They used to be like, say, my grandfather used to be a good counselor for me. So that type of counseling is just an emotional bondage with care on me. He may say something, but a psychological counseling is different. So, but certain facts we'll have to share with the parents, because we cannot say that astrology is bad to them. So we will have to replace their belief system with something else. So they have to start believing science rather than saying that disbelieve in astrology. So this is a very artful thing which we'll have to do. There are two ways. One is, so long as we have an emotional bondage with them, and we'll have to take up this route of what the madam earlier said, persuasion. But that was not recommended. But I would say there is no other way. Persuade them in a way artfully, gradually replacing their belief with the science. One of the things which we can do is, if you have chance to go through, you can collect a lot of experiments done in astrology. A lot of things are available. Our own country people have done, and Ehrlicher has done, and many others have done surveys and found out that a man with having a particular sign, then we have only 12 signs, and there will be 12 group of people in the whole country. So people are not having the similar characteristics and the fortunes and things like that. So we will have to bring such facts in a gradual way to the parents. Another way is, we have to break the emotion if that is necessary, in order to create a greater benefit to the society. I break my emotional relation. If we can go ultimately to that stage, then that is the shock which may sometimes change the mind of the parents, because the emotion should be based on certain values. The values cannot be blind belief on something else and imposing that on me. And this is creating a problem in the neighborhood, where they'll say, I'm studying, even that girl is wearing the stone and things like that. So this is spreading such things. So sometime I may have to do that, but that is an extreme step. But before that, some of these things we will tell how the way how the astrology has come and this type of beliefs have come. We will have to tell. See, for example, Poincaré, the scientist, he has mentioned on place that it is incredible how useful belief in astrology has been to humanity. It is just a joke like that we can share. See, for example, because there was a belief in astrology, Kepler and Tycho Brahe made a living. Why? Because they sold the certain ideas to a naive king. The predictions founded on the conjunctions of stars. So they were able to get certain things for their own survival. Otherwise, the man who looks at the sky all the time and does some calculation has no value in the court of a king, compared to a poet who always sings praising the king, or a dancer who pleases him, or a musician. So this man who looks at the sky in the night and does some calculation has no value. So he has created his own value by this way, and Kepler and Tycho Brahe we got because of this belief in astrology of the kings. So this is a joke. So some of these things we can share jovially and try to create a faith on me, not based on the luck factors and things like that, but on my own strong footing and foundation in my life, that I will be all right as you desire, not necessarily because of this stone, but because of my strength, mental strength and determination. So slowly this kind of changes we may have to bring in them. I think this is a struggle everyone has to undergo, and including myself. Anyone else can throw some light on this, not only me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
I had a follow-up question regarding her tasks. She said that she had looked up Varamihira, etc. So, do you think studying astrology and other pseudosciences as subjects of history or their societal impacts throughout the ages, would they help in eradicating the belief, or would they reinforce them?
We can study, but study astrology as what? That is the point. We should know, like, for example, I know certain things now, and many of you might have looked at what is astrology. The history of astrology, we all should know as a part of history of sciences. And then that will help us. So how it came at one time, and how these astronomers of the earlier times survived based on these astrological predictions, particularly to the kings, not for the farmer or anybody else. So because that is where they will get the money, and even today that is a situation. So those some of the things we have to study, yes, but not as a degree course of IGNOU or something like that.
May I add a little bit here?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
So I just wanted to add one thing. Whenever we talk about history, before even I count it as history, it has to qualify certain scientific aspects. Otherwise, anything cannot be history. And the history is, again, not everything, just talking about like the facts, and so these are not everything. There is another thing which comes later on, that is called the analysis of the history. Histories are facts over the time. Now, the moment you start connecting all these things in a causal way, like why such a situation appeared in such a time, so that such a concept appeared, and so on and so forth. That is why the moment you learn about history, it not only tells you the facts, rather it gives you a direction of development. That helps. And that is why sometimes we say, by the introduction of astrology, you are going back towards the medieval period. See, we are talking about the direction. And that has something to do with history, because history teaches us how is the course of evolution as far as our society is concerned. If you look at astrology very carefully, at the very beginning, astrology, what you see today, was very different. Means what I wanted to say, our astrology in the past, before Alexander and after Alexander, are very different. There is no written record as such, but it is commonly again kind of accepted by the historians that we did not have this zodiac stuff. For example, this horoscope, this 12 constellation like thing. It was not there. From the whatever record we have, for example, through these Shruti and all these things, or let's say all the documents that we get before Alexander and after Alexander, you see, there is an inclusion of this additional fact there. Inclusion of not fact, additional idea after, let's say, Alexander invaded. So the moment you introduce this thing to an historical way, a person who even believes in astrology will have some point of doubt that, well, it has been somehow carried through by someone, it was not there. So astrology as such is not our ancient science. That is what they justify in general with. So this is very important in that sense. We need to know the history, but the mindset to even justify or analyze whether it is a history or not has to be scientific. That is why we call history as a social science. It's not a subject of something believed. Okay, this is one of the part, and if you allow me, I would like to add to Anushka's question also. Anushka's point was that it is true your parents believe, but remember, believing when something is there, there are a lot of things involved, and much of these is that they did not know how to analyze things. Say you believe something and I strike. That is not going to help, given that you replace it with something else. There is no vacuum even in the sphere of mind. See, these people, they started believing in these can be because of many reasons. One of them is really uncertainty. Long time back, people used to find some solution in believing something, but this is not the case today. This history. Point by point, if you can add, not directly hitting this thing, it actually works. Because human being at the end, the people who are really facing it, even though at certain point they believe, but when it's a question of direct confrontation with nature, with situation, they are very realistic also. People who are very hungry, don't have food, don't have job, they will not just limit themselves just by believing. They also look for food, look for some alternative. So these are the points. What I wanted to say is that often it is not a good idea to directly confront, but rather try to look at what are the logical aspects they have. Try to improve them. Try to improve them. So it is often the case, if I find some logical structure in your mind, I try to develop this logical part, and then this will proliferate. That kind of grows further, and each time all this illogical stuff actually goes out. So this is essentially the way to do that. Means that is what I at least see. That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. Anushka wants to say something again. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. Sir, I try to explain it like this way, that planetary movements cannot just influence my personal life. It something my willpower only can. And also try to explain this way that the early astrologers, such we named those Varaha Mihira and all, their science is just being misused by the present ones in form of business, as they're selling the stones with a very high price by hitting our soft corner actually. So sir, actually these issues were which I was exactly facing, and I'm trying to explain in this way that these are nothing but mere business just to cheat you and all. Thank you so much, sir, for your explanations.
You are actually right. Maybe Dr. Venkatesan, you want to add?
No, what you are doing is very right, but with a very close love and affection, if you continue this kind of interaction with your parents, not with a very apparent motive, but with a hidden love and affection, that they are getting educated through you. So then this will one day they will very soon easily realize it. It's not difficult. So you are in the right way. Thank you.
Okay, Rupkatha, I think, has a question. Rupkatha.
Hello, I'm Rupkatha Chand. I'm an undergrad student. I've learned this like over time, that people like to be easy on life, I mean, as much as possible. So they don't like to put in a lot of effort. And I think that this is why this astrology and other things, they pop up. What I'm trying to say is that just look at the advertisements of astrologers and etc. They will say that you do this and then you will get the result that you desire. But like, life is not that easy, but people like to go, I mean, they like to get the problems, they like to get rid of the problems as easily as possible. And I think this is one of the reasons why these things are there. So can you just give a workaround for that? Of this
just a
easy
moment.
mindset?
Yeah, what I found in the same way, I'm not giving an answer to this. Some people go there to some astrologer with a problem, thinking that they may get some kind of a solution. The problem, for example, solution is not, see, for example, I failed in an examination. But then failing the examination means I don't have any future career, and my life may be in a problem. Then I go to an astrologer, And then he says, your signs are like this, and your future will be like this only. Even that may sometimes convince me, yes, it is not my fault. My time of birth is a fault. So I will come back and tell my parents, you see, I have failed. Otherwise, also I am doomed to fail because my time is like that. So this may be one kind of a solution. But suppose if I am not of that type of person, I want to succeed somehow and create a future. That astrologer identifies that is my motto. Then he will personalize and try to tell that now, maybe for 1 year, you take a break, you do this, that, something like that. And then he will try to. So the point is, there is no basis for these astrologers to really give this is what will happen, this is the quick solution to your no. They will not say, it depends upon the person to person, they will vary. Ultimately, one astrologer, he has written for this type of queries that I am not trying to give a solution to the person, I am trying to stabilize him. I am not telling him that what will be his fortune, whether he will get any fortune, but I am trying to tell that you understand yourself. I am trying to make a man to understand himself by making use of this astrology. You see the kind of language they use. So the point is, to each according to his desire, attitude, and mental agony, these people try to do something. Ultimately, they gain in terms of money. That is one thing. So there is no universal single answer to. So advertisements may come something like that, but ultimately, at any level, you will not know whether you are getting cheated or not. So to that extent, they will try to make you continue to believe in this astrology. So it is a completely personalized. Even there are scientists, as Manav was telling, you must analyze things. But the analyst also, when it comes to his personal issues, they go to this type of people. So, and they choose an astrologer. Astrology is not just like a subject where in science we say, no, anybody does the experiment, the results will be the same. But in astrology, it is not so. So they are completely personalizing to the client and the astrologer also. This is how they keep it. So it is completely baseless. People have got a lot of problems, that is true. They should know the problems are stemming from somewhere else. These astrologers are directing that the problems are because of your birth sign. So that is the greatest problem. Why there is a rich and poor? That we should know how the wealth is produced and how it is distributed. It lies in that. But they will not tell that, no, that you are unemployed is not a problem of your sign. So they will not tell. So it is a time that we will have to, that's what, no, we will have to comprehensively develop a movement to elevate the people's mind and their thinking, so that they get rid of this astrology business. And in every front, they should be able to find out the scientific pathway to their problems, whether it is economy, their personal life, their family issues, whatever it is. There are ways. Nowadays, ways are there. I only shared you.
Yeah. Okay.
So may I add, Ritam?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's some time. So Rupkatha, your point is correct, and what Dr. Venkatesan said also correct. I'll just add a little bit. It is not really always true that people resort to this kind of beliefs because they just want to escape. In many cases, they are just left with no options. For example, even in today's time in the villages, if you look, when there is a snake bite, they take the victim to the people who practice black magic, this Oja. Do you think it's just to escape? No.
Yeah. No.
They don't have any other option. And actually, the most unfortunate thing is that all these pseudoscience, whatever you are seeing in this society, the most of these serious victims, in a sense, most of the people who are seriously affected by these pseudoscience is essentially the most downtrodden ones, the most poorest section. They try hard. They try to do all these things they can. Even if you ask them, they will be ready to work for 18 hours in such a way. They want to sell themselves completely. Even after that, there is no, they could not bring 2 squares a meal in a day. These are the people actually essentially the most vulnerable section, at the same time, the most affected section. And what Dr. Venkatesan mentioned is the most important point there. If you can, how do you say, this is the way you try to convince the most affected section of the society that your life is like this, accept it. Because of your this graha, this planet, this horoscope, this sign and etc., your life is like this. So don't question, accept it. That is why it is not merely a business. It is also a weapon for the ruling dispensations to shut down or to stop asking questions, rather accept. So this is very important. That is why it is not just a business. If it is just a business, problem would have been much simpler. If it is just a business, there wouldn't have been an effort, concerted effort to spread pseudoscience in government institutions. If it is just a business. So it is essentially a weapon to kill the thinking mind. It's an effort to make people believe that whatever is there, it is to be like this. Don't think, don't question. Most of the people who says that you believe, they don't. Most of the people say that if you drink cow urine, your corona will go away. They don't drink. Whenever they are affected, they go to a super specialty modern hospitals. So it is not merely a business. Business is a product of it. It is a concerted effort to make people believe in such a way, in a way, so that they don't start questioning. And the unfortunate fact is that the people who get most affected are the poorest section. It doesn't afford education, doesn't afford a minimum quality of life. Most of their life, out of 24 hours, they are busy in earning some money to survive, don't have leisure time to think. These are the people are essentially the most affected section. So it's not really true what you have said. Okay, but obviously there is a section who wants to escape.
Yeah.
That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you. Sorry.
Okay, sir. So on that note, I would like to, I think, wrap up this session. We would like to sincerely thank our 2 speakers who took our time out of their busy lives to address us today. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, ma'am. So I think we end the meeting here. Unless you have some, something to say to end, ma'am, sir.
Thank you. It was a nice discussion. I enjoyed it.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting.
Thank you, Ritika. Thank you.